we better take a break. Amen. We sure had a great time last night. Spirit was all over everything, and everything just went so well. We're so grateful. Also, I want to mention to everybody and remind everybody, kind of thank John. John Crawlin in the back is the guy with the cameras and makes all the videos and all of the DVDs and everything, and they're in there on a shelf right around the corner, and they're there for you to enjoy. If you'd like to take a DVD home of a specific service or a CD home of just the music, it's there. They're there. Look at them. It's there for you to enjoy. So just help yourself to them. John does this, and he enjoys doing it. Sandra gets them on the YouTube, so it's there for you to share. Maybe you want to send one to somebody, or you just got one specific one that you really like, and you want to watch it over and over again, kind of like what was that movie? Top Gun. I don't know how many times I watched Top Gun. I did watch. Remember the movie Urban Cowboy? I don't know where I'm going with this, but anyway. Urban Cowboy, I don't know how many times I watched that movie. I watched it a bunch of times. It was, that was back when you had the VCR and the big old box and all that stuff. But if there's one in there you want, just help yourself to them. They're there for your enjoyment as we go forward. There's, living in the desert Southwest where we live here, it's an amazing place to live. And Greg and Susie and I, we were all talking yesterday about the times in which we live. We were at some friends' house yesterday morning having coffee and talking about what an amazing time we live in. We live in a time where we're seeing Bible prophecy come to reality. Yes. Mm-hmm. I thought about. I used to think it would have been nice to live back in the late 1800s and early 1900s when this part of the country was being developed and inhabited. But I thought that'd have been neat. But I really wouldn't trade the times that we're in for any other time. We were appointed by God to be here for this time and for the times that we're in, so that we could see His majesty and see how amazing the scriptures are with prophecy about how it's telling us what's going on. And it's amazing again to live in this part of the country as we see it develop and things change. And some of the things that have been there for a while are still there and still original. One of the amazing things that I learned when I was young about this part of the country is that all rivers flow south, almost. There's a few that don't. And one of those amazing things is the San Pedro River. It's down by Benson. When you cross it on the freeway on I-10 right there at Benson. And it starts about 10 miles down into Mexico, and it flows north through Cochise County and Pima County and Graham County, and winds up in Pinal County over here and ties in with the Gila River. And it flows from Mexico north all the way to the Gila River. And the river is huge. It's a big, wide river, and if you've ever seen it flowing full of water, it's a lot of water comes through that river. But it's not commonly full of water. It sets dry more than it has water in it. And you wonder, how does a river get so big and so wide, and if you've ever seen it flowing full of water, carry so much water and then it just dry up? And it's always been that way. People will say, well, it used to flow all the time, but no, it didn't, because the stage lines, the overland stage lines, had a stage stop down there back in the 1800s. It's called the San Pedro Stage Stop, and they always had warnings out that there's no water. When you left Tombstone and you headed west, if you was going to be on that overland stage going through the San Pedro, there would be no water when you get there. They could almost guarantee it. But yet, the San Pedro, they've got to put a gauge in. Let's see, in 1904 at Charleston, they put in a river gauge to monitor the water that comes through that river. And the largest amount of water that ever came down the San Pedro in 1 year was 152,798 acre feet. An acre foot of water is almost 326,000 gallons. A lot of water comes down that river in certain times of the year. And all the water that has come down the river, you can take off there at Palmerine Road in Benson, and you can drive north on a dirt road that goes. Palmerine Road goes along the San Pedro River, and you can go all the way to San Manuel and Winkleman on that dirt road up through the mountains. And you see where that river has flown and how it's cut a path through rocks and in places it just seems like it would have been impossible. And I was thinking about how the water, on the years when when there was plenty of rain, it didn't have any trouble cutting the path and making itself big and wide and room for all the water to come down and take out whatever it would take out. But on the years when there wasn't that much rain, when the rain was kind of slack for a year, the water still made it to its destination at the Gila, but it just didn't have a big effect on the river. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing that the Bible mentions the river quite a bit. And our life, our spiritual life is like that river. When we come up against obstacles in our life and things that are in the way of us moving forward, for us to be able to overcome those obstacles relies entirely on how much force we have with us, how much we have pushing us onward. If we're not connected with the Lord, if we're not in constant prayer, if we're not seeking Him out in everything that happens in our life, we come up against obstacles that we can't, it's like being in a drought. The Bible relates to that. It's like we just don't have enough to get through. And we need, in order for our life, and it shapes and it molds and it forms our life in the way that it is. As you go drive along that river, you come to some places where the rock was too much and the river had to find a way around. And then there's other places where the river came to a rock and it went around both sides and just encompassed the rock like the rock wasn't even there. And our life is that way. We have to realize that for us to really get a grasp of what God does in our life, it molds and shapes our river. It molds and shapes the way we're going. And I thought about how many times within the first 30 minutes of a day does what's happening around us shape our day. We wake up in the morning and something happens that we wake up, we're in a good mood, we've got a positive attitude, we've got good things going our way, we're looking like it's going to be a good day, and before we get to the car to go do anything, something happens and it turns us. Just like coming up against that rock and that river, and it just turns us, it takes us off a course. And we have to find another way to get around. You know, we so many things in our life that can just really change our focus and take us off track. And we eventually get through. God's good and God's persistent and God keeps with us and He helps us get around these obstacles. But sometimes the obstacles are so much and it's because we're not bold enough and confident enough in our Savior to say He's going to get me through it. When something happens, we don't reach out to Him right away. We see the obstacle, we see the rock in the middle of the way and we decide it's too tough, I can't get around it. I watched a video that Greg and Susie gave me about a training at Oral Roberts University. I think I mentioned it last week, and Charles Stanley was on there. And he said one of the first pastors he ever worked under told him when God sends you that direction and there's a brick wall in the way, run at the brick wall and God will make a hole in it. Amen. Don't allow the obstacle to stop you. As we see things with our eyes, we begin to adjust our focus and believe that we can't make it. Again, when you drive along the river and you see right out in the middle of the river, there's a great big rock still sticking up, and on both sides it's washed out. That was the year when the river was strong. That was the year when there was plenty of water and plenty of support, and it came to the rock and it said, I don't care if you're in my way, I'm going through. And see, our life is the same way. When we're serving the Lord and we're seeking God in our life, the enemy's going to put obstacles up because he wants to turn us in a direction. He wants us to get us off track. He doesn't want your testimony to be so strong that it looks like you can overcome everything, because then you're going to share that with somebody. See, our testimonies sometimes, testimonies are fantastic. I love to hear testimonies, and that's what Charles Stanley did in that whole video, was a testimony of his life. But a testimony says, I come up against things and it was tough. And this is what happened because I didn't stay connected to the Lord, or I got right on through it because all I did was just kneel down and pray. I took time and I remembered where my strength comes from. Let's go to Psalms. I think it's Psalms 46 and verse 4. And it's just amazing again, as so many times in the Bible that a river is used as an analogy to show us who God is. Psalms 46 and verse 4. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, a holy place of tabernacles of the Most High. He uses river to show that it's as simple as just floating down the river. You know, you go to the Salt River in the summertime, and there's just inner tubes floating down the river. Everybody, you just get on the river, get on the inner tube, and away they go. And they make it to the other end just by sitting there. Not by doing anything, any special thing, just sitting there and allowing the current of the river to take them where they're going. See, God wants to do that in your life. He wants you to count on Him so much that you can just sit back and relax and say, you know what, however the Lord leads me today is where I'm going to go, and I'm not going to fight against the current. I'm not going to be a trout and try to swim that way when the river's going that way. Because it's so much easier when we allow what we get our strength from to direct our path and to show us the way to go, that we can actually just go through life. He came that we would have life and have it more abundant. He came that we would have peace like a river. He gives that analogy so many times that life can be so peaceful. We see our world around us as we aspire, and I go back and I think so many times, you know, we say that our parents get wiser as we get older. I can remember so many times my dad telling me how rock and roll was going to destroy the world. Yeah. Rock and roll was the last straw. Elvis and his stuff, that was pretty much it. If we kept following that rock and roll, that was going to be the end. And then rap came along, and then something else, and now something else. And I think of myself back in my dad's shoes up here today. Oh, this is going to destroy the world. That's it. We're going to hell in a handbasket. Ain't no help. There's no way out. Not supposed to be a way out. The river goes to a destination. Our life goes to a destination. The way we get to the destination is to go along with the river, to let the Lord take us where He wants us to be and to grow us in the way He wants to grow us so that we can enjoy all that He has for us along the way. Some of the most amazing things I've seen have been going down a river in a boat or a raft in places that you can't get there any other way. And looking at cliffs and looking at the sides of mountains and looking at things that God has created along the way. And not fighting against the current. Our life is such a wonderful thing that God has given us in the time, again, in the time that we're living. We were appointed to be here at this time for His purpose, for His glory, that we could witness of who He is and what He does in our life, that we can just say, you know what, it's really not as bad as it looks. There's a lot of avenues out there that paint a picture of a terrible place. Oh, it's terrible what's happening. Our world's falling apart. Yep, it's going to. You can read about it right here. It's going to fall apart. It's going to crumble around us. That's how God reveals who He is. By His prophecies coming true. The things we see happening, it's like, wow, the Bible said this was going to happen. How amazing is that? When all we had to do was just, okay, Lord, we're going to pray. We're going to seek Your face every morning. And this has been difficult for me to learn. The Lord's been working on me on this for some time, and He's still working on it. And I don't think we're done yet. About really trusting Him in everything that comes my way. Everything that happens in my day, to learn to trust and believe that God put it in place that I could learn something from it. That my life could be easier if I would learn to live and trust God in every single circumstance. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, God has put you there and appointed you there that you would learn. Yesterday was my oldest granddaughter's birthday, Murray. She turned 6 and she wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese, and Chuck E. Cheese is in Chandler, and it's a Saturday, and her and every other kid that turned 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 12 and 13 wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese yesterday. We get to Chuck E. Cheese and it's just packed. And there's people and kids and everywhere. And I sat through it and I even went and that's how much money's left in my money clip. When you're in Chuck E. Cheese's with a cowboy hat on, you're an easy target for your grandkids. They can find you. Papa, I'm out of tokens. Like it's a... But anyway, I finally told Nessa, I got to go outside. I gotta go out, it's just way too much noise in here, way too much going on. I need to go outside and just chill out for a little bit, so I went outside and then there's a little bit later she texted me, hey, we're fixing to have some cake, so I went back inside and then we left. And when we left, we seen another guy sit in his car. And let's go, there's another father right there. There's Grandpa one. But it seems too much, but we have to remember, we're counting on God. I asked God that morning to put me where He wanted me and to use me and to allow me to recognize Him in everything that I did. So instead of getting frustrated to the point that it makes me upset or causes me to get off track, it's just take time and say, okay, Lord, you put me here. For whatever reason or why this is happening, this is where I am. And I prayed and I trust the one that I prayed to that He put me where He wanted me to be. And it may not be where I would want to be. See, that's the difference. Well, this ain't where I want to be. Tough. I didn't get up in the morning and say, Lord, I'm going to go where I want and I need you to help me. I said, Lord, you take me where you want me to be. And teach me to trust you that I can just have a peaceful, easy day trusting in Him and going where He'd have me to go. And He did. And we don't have to. I mean, years ago, I'd have been pulling my hair out, whatever, or maybe I did. And I just figured out what happened. But in reality, it's learning to trust Him. If we learn to trust Him in every circumstance, we learn to live the life the way the river flows and go in the way He'd have us to go. And when the obstacles come, we just go right around it that way or around it that way, just go right on by. It doesn't have to cause us stress. It doesn't have to cause us to have an upset stomach. It doesn't have to cause us to have a headache. It doesn't have to cause any of that. If we just remember, you know what, I prayed and I asked God to give me the peace like the river that He talks about in Psalms, so I'm just going to trust Him. I'm going to let it be what it is. And count on Him no matter what the obstacle is. I asked Him this morning, I'm going to trust Him and I'm going to go through it all the way through to the end so I can see where the destination is. Got back, went down to Las Colinas, had a great time for 2 hours, just playing some good old gospel music. And at the end of the day, just a peaceful, easy day. It wasn't difficult. I went along with the current the whole way. And it went this way and it went that way. And there were exciting things that happened. Because I didn't ask God to do it my way. I asked God to do it His way, and then I trusted Him in it. And that's what He's been teaching me. That's what He's been working on me. It doesn't work every day. There's some days I still decide the rock is too big and I got to go this way. And He lets us do that. But He keeps His hand on us. He says, I understand. You're going to drift out there. But I'll bring you back. And you'll learn from that just as much as you learn from this. See, that's the big key, is learning every day what God is trying to do in my life. What is He teaching me today? Because He's teaching you every single day, I promise. There's something He wants you to learn today. There's something He wants you to learn tomorrow. And if we're focused on remembering that He's trying to instruct me that I can understand His ways, He says, take my yoke upon you. My way is easy. My burden is light. It's not difficult. But when you yoke up with something, that means you're hooked up for good. You can't jump in and out of the yoke and decide, yeah, today I will, tomorrow I won't. And things happen. I mean, there's some pretty amazing things that can happen in somebody's life in just the course of a couple hours that can really throw us off track. And that's why He says, you've got to learn to count on me all the time, so when the big rocks come,